The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
I'm your darkest dream. They call me devil. My heart is empty. They call me devil, and you should be afraid.
This show is based on true events. We may use audio, transcripts, and other media to show the true graphic nature of predators. For legal purposes, this is our research. We are not legal, mental, or medical professionals and do not claim to be. This show is meant to educate and create change in how we deal with predators and the survivors of their abuse. If you or someone else observes someone being abused, please seek help and report it. Some subjects may be disturbing for some individuals. You've been warned. Well, welcome to tonight's show of Betrayal on Arm Radio. I'm your host, Kasy, and this week has been quite a busy week in the world of true crime. There was the mass shooting in El Paso and also in Dayton, Ohio. That's still an ongoing investigation. It seems like every week we're getting some sort of shooting in a public location. Now, we will be discussing gun ownership, I guess, gun rights, if you will, the pros, cons of it. What is the solution to people who go into public areas, whether it's a work, a church, a school, place of business, in the public somewhere, and just decides to indiscriminately blow away people. It doesn't matter their age, their sex, their color. They just start indiscriminately shooting at people. What possesses people to do that? Is it mental illness? Is it these people are just evil people? Is it violence in the media and games? What is the cause? What is the solution? How long has this been going on? Well, we have to think of contemporary times. And, of course, in America alone, because apparently 2 countries have issued warnings against their, people in their country to a safety warning saying that the United States is just unsafe to travel to. And other countries are also putting up warnings saying that travel in the United States is unsafe. Well, in a way, yeah, I mean, it's pretty scary to know that, anywhere you go, down the road here, someone just decided to have road rage and just didn't like a person cutting them off or was in front of them, decided to shoot and shot inside the car, and it caused a major accident. And people just, people have just lost their effing mind. That's all there is to it. We have lost our ever-loving minds in this world. And if we were to focus all that energy into curing diseases, curing homelessness, the advancement of human civilization as opposed to the destruction of human civilization, what could we accomplish? Would we have colonized the, space? Would we have discovered, planets that had different life on it? Would we be colonizing other planets? Would we be, I guess, interspecies out there? Because do you think that we're the only ones out here? It's already been proven that through documents that there is life and intelligence out there in the universe, and everything. And so let's discover all that stuff. Let's learn as much as we can. But instead of learning, we are just destroying each other. And as the dinosaurs did, we know that that doesn't really, end in in a good way, because the dinosaurs were pretty much wiped out. Now, granted, we are starting to see some species come back that we thought were extinct, such as the six-gilled shark that was just discovered swimming in, because they swim in very deep water. So they were doing a deep water discovery for something else, and they discovered this six-gilled shark. And they're like, well, this was supposed to be a shark that was supposed to be extinct, like, millions of years ago. And there it is at the bottom of the ocean, which means if there's one shark, it has to be able to reproduce with another shark. So there's at least two sharks, a male and a female, to produce offspring, which means when they produce offspring, they produce and they produce and they produce. So there's more sharks there than what we know. Also, because of Shark Week, there is saying there is megalodons still out there in the incredibly deep water, and those sharks, oh my gosh, those sharks are crazy sharks. You thought a bull shark was nuts? A megalodon shark is whole other level crazy. And huge. I mean, massive shark. But we're not talking about Shark Week. We're talking about the violence that's happening in this country. And I see it on my Facebook page quite a bit, because I scroll through where people are just so angry at each other. And they're so angry at different things that are going on. And we can say it's political, one side against the other side. But I'm going to tell you this, is that both Democrats, Republicans, they both have flaws in their system. And, if you were to take away the label Republican and Democrat, and wipe that away, liberal, conservative, things like that, get down to the heart and the root and look at the real issue there. There are people who are extreme on both sides, who blame the other side to the extreme, and have that fuel of just anger towards the other party just for having the label Republican or Democrat. And I look at the government, and what I'm seeing, a lot more of what I'm understanding more, is that there's a lot of greed in the government, to where they no longer serve the people that they have sworn to serve. They serve themselves, and they serve the people who pay them, which are the lobbyists. And they're big company lobbyists who are basically puppeteering the government. And when you puppeteer the government, and when they're consumed by greed, they no longer look at the issues that are important to the people who they serve, because they're serving themselves. And that means that there is a breakdown of the government. It doesn't work. Because, as we know through history, that the Revolutionary War was started because in England at the time, and also during this time, people in Europe, there was the Spanish Inquisition, there was the Catholics against the Protestants, and there was a huge holy war over that, because Catholics were the true, Roman Catholic Church basically owned the planet. It was the decision maker. It controlled everything. When King Henry broke away from the Roman Catholic Church, he was cast out of that church. He started the Protestant church. When Protestantism and the different branches of religion, Lutheran, Protestant, just a variety of religions branched off, it weakened the Roman Catholic Church, and the Catholics were just beside themselves. And so there was infighting because they were so passionate about Roman Catholicism that they felt like they were doing the right thing by, casting out the Lutherans, the Protestants, and all these people. So what happened is that these people boarded ships to, it wasn't known as the Americas, it was known as the New Land, and the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock. They basically colonized it, not successfully at first, with the help of the Native Americans, and also man's manifest destiny, which means is that I'm here, I'm conquering you. That happened. Whenever the colonists came over, they carried diseases that the Indians were not used to and basically caused issues. But once the Puritans came to the United States and colonized it and got that going, then the British came. They were British and Dutch and things like that. Dutch, which is still around, the East India Company, which is still around. It is an actual company, the East India Trading Company. It's not just from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And so the English settled the 13 colonies, and they were ruled by the King of England. And what happened is during the time when Marie Antoinette was in France, and the King of England was King George, his son was basically a despot. He liked his whores, to say least. He was a gambler. He was a party boy. He was a self-entitled douchebag, to be honest. King George was misguided and just weak to a certain extreme. That's how he is portrayed in English historical documents and everything. And that he just, kind of like Marie Antoinette and King Louis, they were just spending and just, oblivious to the suffering of their people, which caused them to lose their head. England, on the other hand, was basically oblivious to the colonies because it was out of sight, out of mind. But it was a part of the British territory. So what happened is when they were taxing these goods and services, tea, sugar, which is a main staple in the English culture, they were upset with that. And they were also upset, the fact is they were getting all these taxes, but the people on the mainland in the UK were not. And so they felt like they were being unfairly punished. So what happened and this was completely against the law, completely, is that if you went against the king, if you said anything against the king, like, I don't like the King of England, that was treason. If you only could say positive things about the king. If you said, I want the King of England to die, that was considered treason. And treason meant you died. You got, executed, usually by hung, or you were beheaded, or some form of fashion, and everything. So what happened is these people decided to start a small, first of all, it was like a small group. They were sitting there talking left and right, and they're like, this is all treason what we're saying, but this is what the idea we had. The idea started to spread. And once the idea started to spread, it got more followers. And you have to remember, these people had no sophisticated weapons. They had no sophisticated military training, because in that time, England was the superior force as far as armies, as far as, they could kick your butt, pretty much. So as this movement started to progressively get larger, it developed into the Revolutionary War. And just by the skin of our teeth, really and truly, it was the skin of our teeth, that this pack of rebels defeated the British Army and basically started the United States of America. And this was just an experiment. And they created a constitution that's supposed to, be for the people, serve the people, by the people, that whole thing. In fact, the first president and the first people who were in Congress did not get paid. It was a voluntary function. And it was an honor to do that. And what happened was they would poll, because it was 13 colonies, it was like almost like polling a room. It's like, how many say yay, how many say nay? Then they had representatives who still didn't get paid. It was all voluntary, who said yay or nay. And they were doing things that would advance and be betterment of the society, and then growing out through the expansion out west, and then, the rest is history on there. Well, one of the things is that with man, is that the United States, we are treasonous. In fact, some of the really conservative English people still refer to us as traitors. They still refer to us as, we are the rebels. The United States is built on rebellion. The United States is built on treason. So these people who are saying nowadays, oh, this person's treasonous because they're this, or anti-American, it resonates with a movement that happened that triggered World War II. And World War II was triggered by a man called Adolf Hitler. And he was poor. He grew up poor. Poor. I mean, he couldn't rub 2 cents together to make anything happen. But he started with an idea. And that idea spread, and then it became the SS, and then he was conquering, a majority of Europe was conquered by this man before the United States even set in. And the United States only stepped in because of Japan bombing Pearl Harbor. That is the only reason why we stepped into World War II. Other than that, we were just like, it's not my problem. And as Hitler is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and everything. And that's the only reason why we stepped in. And then we handled the business, and we took care of him. We took him out, and Hitler committed suicide. And, he still has followers to this day. That's how powerful he is, which they are called Nazi, white skinheads, white supremacists, Nazi sympathizers. So, what is the origin of racism? Well, that's a very good question. Where was that created? Who in the group was like, hey, one day, yeah, I'm going to call these people this negative name. I'm going to do this. I'm going to not like this particular person. Well, to be perfectly honest, for as long as man has been on the planet, man has always, if something is different, there are people who will embrace the difference, and there are people who are like, nope, I don't like you. You are different. You're different from me. You look different from me. You sound different from me. I don't like you. And therefore, they excluded those people from things. They bullied those people. And hence, racism, bigotry was developed. And it was in biblical times during Jesus' time, because Jesus was, basically people were like, Jews, you guys are nasty people. We don't like Jews. We don't like you. We're going to throw you in a pit. We're going to throw you in jail. You guys are awful, awful, awful people. And so Jewish people were, prejudiced against, and everything. And, we all know that. It's in the Bible. You can read that document. And other historical documents that are not biblical documents that will say Jewish people were persecuted. Jewish people are still persecuted. Middle Eastern people, if you want to go to the Middle East, the Sunni and the Shiite Muslims, and one is extreme to the other, they don't like each other. They're both Muslims, but it's like two different viewpoints. It's almost like being Baptist and Southern Baptist not liking each other. And you're still Baptist at the end of the day, but one is one level, one is another. And so I can't say it, the different Muslim sects, they fight, and they have been fighting for thousands and thousands of years. And they don't get along with each other. Because one believes their way, their course is the best way as opposed to the other side. And in the United States right now, I think we're getting that influx. We're seeing it more and more, is that we're seeing extremism. And with gun control, eliminating every single gun in the United States except for who is, I mean, if you go to England, when I went to England, I did not see police officers carrying guns. They carried billy clubs. And I did not see that. I see any kind of guns. Now, when I was in France in front of the Notre Dame, I saw assault machine guns. They were holding machine guns. And it was quite scary to see that, to be honest, in front of a church, to see people, patrolling back and forth with machine guns. But that was during a time when there was some rioting going on. It was a little bit scary during that time. And it was like a few months after a bombing in the tunnels of Great Britain, in the London Tube tunnels, which I had traveled in the London Tube tunnels, and I was a little bit apprehensive about that. So, in the United States right now, you're seeing, and this has been going on for quite some time, and I'm going to discuss one specific event that's considered the first mass shooting in the United States. Now, we do know that Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated, but that's not considered a mass shooting. That's an assassination. But still, equally horrendous. This is the first mass shooting of multiple people indiscriminately in the United States. And what we're happening here, and I'm going to tell you my opinion, and opinions are like buttholes. We all have them and they all stink. And everything. If we get rid of all the guns, will that solve the problem? Well, it'll make getting access to guns a lot harder, but it's not going to get rid of the problem. Because if you think about it, drugs, cocaine, heroin, all these things are illegal. And yet, people are obtaining these drugs and making money on it on a black market. Certain guns are illegal, but can be attained if you have the right money and the right connections. Does that mean Joe Schmo down the street is going to know these people? Well, if you dig far enough and deep enough, you will find sources. So, eliminating guns, I mean, Australia has no guns. The citizens of Australia are not allowed to own any kind of firearms. And yet, in New Zealand, there was that mass shooting that happened at a church in New Zealand. Illegal weapons. But yet, in, I believe it's Singapore, they have zero crime. Because they beat you with a rod if you litter or other means. They cane you. Holland. We haven't heard any mass shootings in Holland, but we have heard about, I think that was in Belgium, that the airport got blown up or invaded in some sort of fashion. And they have legalized marijuana, prostitution, and various things. They're like, if you guys are going to prostitute anyway, we are going to regulate it. If you guys are going to smoke pot anyway, we're going to regulate it. I know that when I was in Holland and Belgium, especially, let's see, it was in Belgium actually. right next to an elementary school was a billboard sign, and it was an advertisement for a mattress. And it had a buck naked woman reclining on the mattress facing the elementary school. No hubbub about it. Nobody was up in arms like, oh my gosh, it's pornography in front of a children's, place of education. None of that stuff. In Europe, there is tons of nudist beaches. It's just considered, it's just normalized out there. You will find adult magazines with no filter, no protection or anything like that in convenience stores, whereas here we have them all blacked out and everything like that. I know that when I was in the Grand Cayman, which I thought it was kind of interesting, the beach at Rum Point, some of the Europeans, women, they took off their tops and their kids were swimming buck naked. And they were like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. I was sitting there snorkeling around and this kid's like running up towards me. Can I use your snorkel mask? Buck naked kid and everything. I was in shock. I was like, oh my gosh, where's this kid's swim trunks? I was in shock, to be honest. Personally, I don't want to see your bits and pieces. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how fabulous you look. I don't want to see your bits and pieces hanging out. Put a bathing suit on. Europeans, they wear those Speedos, which has got basically guy panties. And they go around and wear that. I'm not sure if I want to see Speedos either. Put some swim trunks on, put on a bathing suit, cover up and everything. But it's accepted in Europe. It's just, we in the United States, we're just, I don't know, we just are raised where that's just not cool. And that's probably just my upbringing. I just don't want to see it. It's just not my thing. I don't want to see your bits and pieces. But culturally, you will find different countries where they have zero crime. They have really hardly any jails. It's just crime does happen, but they handle it in a way that is effective. I know that when I was in the UK, France, their parks and their streets are just the places I was at, which were very public places, in the tubes, they were pretty darn clean. Parks. They had free gyms. They were outdoor gyms with free equipment, and it was all, treadmills, everything like that, all working. People just work out there. They walked everywhere. They had mass transit everywhere. It was like you did not need your car in that place unless you're going out into the country or really far away. In those countries, they had a lot of solar, wind, items where you could see those in certain places. So I don't know. Right now, we as Americans, there's some stuff going on, and we've got to do something about it because we're killing each other, and it's just not getting any good and everything. The El Paso thing, the mall, apparently I've been in that mall. Apparently there was a place called Montgomery Ward's when it was still around, and me and my brother, that's where we bought our first VCR and little television sets when we were over there. And I didn't know, I don't know if the Walmart was there at the time. I don't know if it's a brand new Walmart. I don't know if it's a revamped Walmart. But some guy decided to drive from Dallas-Fort Worth 10 hours to El Paso. 10 hours. 10 hours to El Paso because El Paso is the gateway to Mexico. And he could have driven down to Laredo for a lot less time. That's 8 hours away, I believe. He could have driven down, Corpus, McAllen, or anything like that, and been on the border city. But he chose El Paso, 10 hours away, because it had a majority of, those border towns have majority of Mexican people coming back and forth across the border. And he chose that place, and he had a lot of, racist sentiment and things of that nature, and chose to just start getting out of his car and just starting from the parking lot inside, blasting people. It didn't matter who you were, the color of your skin, what religion you were, how old you were. It was just boom, boom, boom into the building. If you were there, if you were driving through the parking lot, it did not matter. And a lot of people lost their lives in result of that. And the guns that were being used are automatic weapons that are deregulated from the military. They're military grade weaponry that's been deregulated by the military and then made available to the public. And these bullets that they use are designed to eviscerate whatever it encounters. It is not designed to preserve life or to pacify or to inhibit or to subdue people. It is designed to eviscerate bone, tissue, muscle, whatever it is. Because what happens is the bullets flatten as they enter the body, which causes the majority of damage. Now with a shotgun, when you have a shotgun and you fire into somebody, it has an entrance and an exit type wound, and it depends what kind of bullets. You can even have ones that they splatter on the inside, or the ones that kind of go cleanly through, and everything. But these bullets that this guy was using were designed to terminate life. And the guns that are being used in these mass shootings are designed to terminate life. There is no other option. These bullets and the guns work together to terminate life. You put the wrong person at the trigger, you are not going to survive. You're going to be in the hospital on life support and then eventually die. Those people who are in the hospital, if they live, they are very lucky, and they're going to have disabilities for the rest of their lives. The people who survived, who didn't get shot, obviously are going to have trauma to deal with. And when a person gets angry and impassioned by a cause that is destructive, there's nothing you can do to stop that person. No amount of mental health, no amount of jail time, no amount of anything. When you get a person who has a burr up their butt, who is hell-bent on destroying somebody or people, it does not matter what you say or do to them. They simply want to watch the world burn. And they cannot be reasoned with. And this person could not be reasoned with. He's thrilled by what he's done. He's not remorseful at all. He is absolutely thrilled. Just like Charles Manson was absolutely thrilled by what he did. And just by his followers were absolutely thrilled by what he did. And it seems like anyone who's committed these mass shootings, whether in the theater, whether in churches, wherever they've done it, they are absolutely, if they're alive, if they manage not to be killed in the process of being apprehended, they're absolutely thrilled to have committed the act and taken out as many people as possible. And as the body count goes up, that sense of accomplishment, if you will, goes up for them. They get more thrilled about it. So, what dies in a person that they lose any regards for life? Well, as we've learned, psychopaths and sociopaths don't have a conscience. They don't have remorse or sympathy. And they simply want to watch the world burn. They get a thrill out of that. Well, I'm going to tell you about a story. And apparently I've been witness to 3 close witness where I was actually there of 3 encounters where mass shootings happened. One was the Irving Mall, I was upstairs and the shooting happened downstairs. One was, oh gosh, there's a couple. I was in that one mall decades before, and everything. But the story I want to kind of touch on right now, besides all the school shootings, which this is back to school month, people are going back to school. I wanted to talk about the first American mass shooting in the United States. And that shooting happened in the city that I live in, the University of Texas, UT, home of the Longhorns. I went to OU, and there's a huge thing that happens in October called the Red River Shootout. It's not a violent thing, it's a football thing. And it's also called OU Weekend. And so that's what they call it in Dallas. And it's where University of Oklahoma, home of the Boomer Sooners, and the University of Texas at Austin, home of the Longhorns, go to Dallas, to the Cotton Bowl, and they play football to the victor and this gold hat. And so they battle it out. So since I went to the University of Oklahoma, I usually say down with the horns. I live in Austin, so I'm used to seeing the burnt orange, but there's a lot of OU people in Austin as well. So for the case of this story, I don't have hatred for UT, because I live in that city. I only am against them during OU weekend when I want my team to win. The rest of the time, I can be like, okay, cool, burnt orange, type of thing. But this school, when UT wins, they light up the UT Tower. And this is a big fixture. You can see the UT Tower all the way to I live in the suburbs. You can see it from the suburbs on a clear day when it's not cloudy. You can see it's part of the cityscape of Austin. And it's a beautiful campus. Don't get me wrong. It is an absolutely beautiful campus. I've been on that campus. And beautiful campus, great educational place academically. Good football team, just not, some years it's just not as good as OU. We kick their butts. But, great school. Matthew McConaughey is one of the alumni. He is a UT Longhorn, Gingham Horn, or not Gingham Horns, that's Gingham Aggies, doing the horn symbol and everything. I don't know what it's called, unfortunately. But on August the 1st, 1966, the first U.S. mass shooting occurred. And we're going to kind of go into that briefly and kind of discuss what occurred on that time frame. And it's horrific. On the UT Tower is inscribed, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." And so it has been over 50 years now since the University of Texas Tower shooting. It is one of the first campuses mass shooting in the United States history, and one of the first mass shootings in the United States. Now you got to remember, let's see, I believe 66, Robert F. Kennedy gets assassinated somewhere in that timeline. Marilyn Monroe has already died. I think she died in 62. And where 69 is when Sharon Tate is murdered. So we're in that kind of window there. And so the tower is somewhat closed off. It has been changed a little bit for safety because people have jumped to their deaths off of that tower in the 70s and 80s, and then they closed the tower off completely. Now you can go up in the tower, but it's through a guided tour. So Basically, and I'm going to play with you if I can. This might be a two-part story. I'm not sure. We'll see, because there's some really good, interesting interviews I want you guys to hear. But this is a gnarly one. Austin police officer. He was 29 years old at the time. Romero Martinez and Houston McCoy shot the sniper. They were the ones who stopped it. Now, during this time, there was no protocols in place to deal with shootings or those kind of things, because it simply did not happen. So this was really a time of innocence. And it seems like things changed, because things did change after that. So this is based upon the information that is out there on it. That August the 1st is when this happened. Mr. Whitman, oh my gosh, he had pistols. He had shotguns. He didn't have these he had a high-powered shotgun. And this was if we want to blame violence shootings on video games and things like that, this is 1966. There were no Game Boys. There were no video games. There were pinball machines. And there was no really the violence in TV at that time was like The Blob and, cheesy vampire movies. It was nothing that you see today, or even the 1980s. So really and truly, you've got the 60s going on, sexual revolution, drugs, sex, rock and roll, and everything like that. The Beatles, think of the Beatles. And, these people, the McCoys, the Whitmans lived in Florida, and then he came from an abusive home, and he is a student at the University of Texas, Mr. Whitman, and he was an engineer in the engineering department as a student. So, Mr. McCoy and this other police officer were responsible for basically helping stop what was going on. So, and it was considered the worst mass murder in American history. Well, things have changed. History is being written as we speak. So, Charles J. Whitman he was an enrolled student. He took control of the observation deck, which is the 28th floor of the University of Texas Tower, the iconic tower. And basically, he fired various weapons. Those weapons are on display at the tower. And I wish I would know that, because, I could go down there and go look at that stuff. I've been on that campus, and I've been in front of that tower looking out there, and I didn't even know about this. I think I heard about it, but I just didn't put two and two together, kind of like the yogurt shop. Sometimes you're in places where mass murders happen, unless it's like Gettysburg. You kind of just like, okay, I'm on campus. I'm sure that the students even the students who go there did not know about it until they put a plaque. And even if you were to ask students today, they would probably still be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's just one of those things it's kind of been buried in history unless you uncover it. So Whitman's murder spree began early morning on August the 1st, 1966. He killed his mother, Margaret Elizabeth Whitman, at her apartment near downtown Austin. Approximately 3 hours later, he returned to his small South Austin home and killed his wife, Kathleen, as she slept in their bedroom. From about 3 a.m. to his arrival at the UT campus approximately 11:30 a.m., he wrote several notes and meticulously prepared for an extended siege of the campus by purchasing and packing an array of guns, about 700 rounds of ammunition, and survivalist supplies. Wearing overalls to disguise himself as a janitor, Whitman entered the tower on the ground floor, boarded an elevator, and wheeled a footlocker on a two-wheeled dolly to the 27th floor. Afterwards, he hauled his gear up 3 flights of stairs to the 28th floor reception area and observation deck. His first victim on campus was the university employee who served as the receptionist on the 28th floor. So he killed the receptionist on the 28th floor of this of the tower. And I've never been inside the tower, so I'm not exactly sure how anything looks. So minutes later, using an illegal modified shotgun, which basically a sawed-off shotgun, he saws it off, women gunned down a family of tourists in the stairwell as they attempted to enter the reception area. 2 of the family members died immediately. 2 others were severely wounded. At 11:48 a.m., Whitman began shooting from the tower outdoor observation deck, which completely encircled the entire 28th floor. The outer walls of each side of the deck included 3 openings that were intended to function as rainspouts. Whitman was able to use these openings as turrets, which effectively shielded him from return gunfire from below. For 96 minutes. 96 minutes! That's almost a movie length. There are movies that are shorter than that. 96 minutes, people. There's 60 minutes in an hour. Over an hour. Almost 2 hours, you guys. It's crazy. The sniper in the tower, as it's called, fired approximately 150 rounds of ammunition onto the public below. The incident ended at 1:24 p.m. Remember, we're looking at 11:48 to 1:24 p.m. when Whitman was ambushed on the northwest corner of the deck by 2 uniformed Austin Police Department patrol officers, Romero Reyes Martinez and Houston McCoy, an armed civilian. So Houston McCoy was an armed civilian. University Co-op employee Alan Crum had also accompanied Martinez to the observation deck and waited near the doorway on the south side of the deck, and according to Crum's statement to the police, Austin Police Officer Jerry Day was also present at the door. So what was happening is that police officers down below were shooting up, and they were shooting up towards where the puff of smoke was at, because you could see the puffs of smoke, and then you could see return fire hitting just near him, but he was well protected by this brick, building portion. And so, the death toll included Whitman's wife and mother was a total of 15, including Austin police officer Billy Speed, died on August 1st. Another died on August 8th, and the final victim died of a gunshot wound in 2000. And the other victim died of a gunshot wound in 2001. So I guess years later they died. 31 individuals were treated for wounds ranging from superficial to life-threatening in Austin's Hospital and University Student Health Center. As a result of the shooting, the observation deck was closed for several months to repair damages done to the outer walls near the clock and the face of the building itself, because this is like where the clock is. During the first 30 years of the building's history, a total of 3 people have committed suicide from the tower deck. After the tower shooting in a 6-year period from 1968 to 1974, 4 people chose to end their lives there. After the last of the suicides, the 28th floor was closed again in 1974. In February 1976, UT Regents voted to close the observation deck permanently. In 1999, UT's president Larry Faulkner presented a plan to the regents to reopen the deck to the general public. The plan included a number of modifications to the 28th floor to make it more accessible and American disability friendly. The outer deck was also made safer by enclosing it with a mesh and stainless steel bars. This is to prevent suicides and also the shooting. Again, the observation deck was reopened to the public shortly after the dedication of the Tower's Memorial Garden on August the 1st, 1999. In 2010, public access to the top of the tower was by appointment in a guided tour only. So you had to have an appointment and guided tour. The first on-campus memorial to the victims of the tower shooting was not dedicated until August the 1st, 1999. A small grassy area immediately north of the tower, including what is popularly known as the Turtle Pond, was dedicated as the Tower Garden, or Garden of Reflection. On August the 1st, 2016, the 50th anniversary of the tower shooting, a much larger monument that has the names of the victims on it, including a baby. One of the victims, her boyfriend were walking on campus. She was pregnant. He was gunned down. She was shot first. She went down. He went to figure out what was going on. He got gunned down. He was killed. Because of her wounds, she lost the baby. So the baby is included on the plaque. The baby would have been called Wilson if it would have been allowed to be born. Excuse me. So basically, yeah, this guy gunned down with sawed-off shotguns, high-powered shotguns, and not semi-automatic weapons, which they did have back then, but it was not available to the public. So, yeah, that was the first mass shooting in the United States. Of course, we've eclipsed that by now just in this year alone, we've eclipsed it. And I think El Paso now is the worst mass shooting in the United States. I think it's eclipsed Las Vegas. I think it's eclipsed any of the school shootings. Equally horrific. Not a single one of those is considered less diminished or less horrific than the other. They are all horrific, tragic losses of life. Anytime you indiscriminately take down a person's life, it's disgusting. Whether you go and bomb a building or you destroy something, it's senseless. So a lot of people are upset. They're like, ban guns, ban guns. Well, okay, we can ban guns, yes, but will that solve the problem? No. When a person is hell-bent on destroying somebody, they're going to find something or they're going to create it in some way. If they can't do it by a gun, as we found in the Boston Marathon situation, there was no guns. It was a crock pot with basically whatever kind of shards of things you could put in there, like screws and nails and broken pieces of this and that, and basically was put, and then somehow they made into a device that would explode and that caused the situation. It was explosive. You can take things you find at Home Depot and create what is called a dirty bomb, which is what Timothy McVeigh used to bomb the Oklahoma City building. And you're not allowed to take a certain amount of liquids, water, onto an airline, because you can combine certain things together to create a weapon. A pencil can be used as a weapon. Your keys can be used as a weapon. Anything. Cars, we've known that because of France, when a guy took a vehicle and ran over people in a pedestrian area. If people are hell-bent on destroying life, they're going to find a way to do it. We're not going to outlaw cars just because we can plow down somebody with it. I mean, they did it also, in the, I believe it was in Mississippi or somewhere where they had people were protesting against the other protesters or something. I don't remember quite the details of that. If people are hell-bent on hurting somebody, they're going to find a way to do that. And they're going to research how to do that. So we can get rid of the internet. That will make it easy, but we still have libraries, and we still have books. And so do we get rid of all the books? Well, Hitler did that. He burned books. He burned a lot of books that we cannot get back. What we have to do is we have to change people's hearts and their mindsets. Is it mental illness that's causing these things? No, it's hate. Hate is not necessary. It's a part of mental illness, but it is also hate. It is part of ignorance. It's ignorance majority of the time. Ignorance breeds the hate. And when you have hate and violence, hate just breeds violence. It's kind of like what Yoda said in Star Wars. I mean, it's kind of prolific. Sometimes in movies you get some of the most wisdom, inspirational things. Because movies are a mirror of society. It's just they put them in different places to teach us things. Aesop's fables, children's story. They're parables to teach us right from wrong. They're parables to teach us not to be lazy, not to be, vain, not to be this, that, and the other. Little Red Riding Hood teaches us to stay on the path and don't deviate from the path. It's basically a socialist piece. It tells you not to rebel and everything. Beauty and the Beast is supposed to, and I just found this out. I love the story of Beauty and the Beast. But apparently its origins were to make it to where forced marriages or arranged marriages, it was supposed to make it to where you were okay with that. By telling the story that you can marry a beast of a man, but eventually it'll be all great. And everything. So we have to change our minds and our hearts if we're going to, squash this violence. And as long as we promote hate and violence and ignorance, we're going to continue to see mass shootings. It's not going to stop. It's not going to go away. I don't know what the solution is myself. I just know that we've made things illegal and people still get their hands on it. Because when a person's that motivated to get that item, they're going to move heaven and hell to get it. It's called a black market, people. People on the black market can sell humans to consume. There's people who hunt humans. And they do it. They pay a high dollar amount. They're like, I want to hunt this human. And they go on safari where they hunt humans. Or they eat humans, or they sell humans, human trafficking. It's illegal, but they do it. And it's just unfortunate. I'm out of time right now. I'm more than out of time. So I will see you next week. And be safe. Thank you guys so much. I see your Twitter comments. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for retweeting the show. I appreciate it. Also, thank you so much for helping my book get to #1 on Amazon. It is still #1 today. I am so beside myself happy. I am so happy. The Devil's Business is still #1 on Amazon. It keeps going up from number 10 to number 9 on there. The Mueller report's kicking my butt. But thank you so much for making it #1 in at least one category. It was #1 in a couple other categories. But it's on the top. It's in the top list, which it's on the New York Times top 10. I cannot believe it. Oh my gosh, that's the first time for me. Thank you so much. Continue to buy the book. Continue to show, your support of this channel and our other shows. Thank you so much. I see your tweets. I retweet your tweets. I follow back and everything. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And have a great week. Bye-bye.